Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes. Hello again. Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes or so, give or take. And I'm very excited to welcome our guest. She's all the way from Florida, Boynton Beach to be exact. This is Rebecca Sunnen Kallaus, and she is the founder and CEO of Business Done Better. So, Rebecca, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I'm excited to talk to you today. Tell us a little bit more about Business Done Better.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're an operational company. So we help with basically everything on the back end of business, from CRM systems, fulfillment on admin and creative, and then full scale operations. So our specialty is especially with online coaches, also any agency style companies. So any virtual business, though, there's probably something that we can support with. And yeah, that's what we do all day long.
Fantastic. And you're very good at it, I know. So that's great. Well, thank you. All right, let's get started with our questions. Rebecca, sometimes in a team or even in a company-wide situation, the employees can fall into a little bit of a lull with their energy levels and excitement and so forth. What can leaders do to infuse energy into their teams?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many different things. I'd say the first thing that comes to mind, I don't know how helpful it'll be to everybody listening to this, but the very first thing that jumped into my mind is just the energy shift that I see when I bring on a new team member. So it's kind of like just bringing that new lifeblood into the team. Everyone just people get excited about it. They rally behind it, and it also keeps people on their toes. So I brought in some new team members, and they're just super sharp. And then, people who have been there for a while, they're like, oh, right, that's okay. All right, I got it. I remember now. Sorry, my bad. Let's step it up. And so it just kind of just shakes things up a little bit, and just adds new perspective, just new energy to it. So that's not always something that you can lean on as a default for that when energy is in a slump. But other things are just making sure that you understand your core values as a company, and just kind of having different things to be able to make sure that those are really inspiring and people are engaged. Checking in with team members, seeing why they're in a slump. Just, anything that's company culture, keeping in mind that things are always people first. When you put people first, then they pay attention, they give more because they care. But if you don't care, then they won't care.
Right. Oh, great points. And you're absolutely right about your earlier comment that new blood does infuse some new energy. You're right. People put that best foot forward feeling, that step it up, as you mentioned, and so on and so forth. So I like the idea. I like the idea of being able to introduce newness in the team. There's probably a bunch of different ways to do that, but I like that. That's a great idea. Question number 2, how can leaders promote learning in their company or in their team?
Yeah, so I'll answer that for us. So we do a Wednesday training every single week with our team. So that could be on something technical. It could be on communication, customer service, critical thinking skills, but also mind, body, spirit, just personal health, just mindset training. So it really covers the whole gamut. I also make it a requirement where every single team member has to deliver at least one training. Past the first one is totally optional. But at first I started doing that at first, and I was just talking at the team, and then I had one person who he was on the newer side but very experienced, and he'd done lots of trainings that he was like, can I do one? I was like, absolutely. And he came in and just blew what I did to shame, and I was like, well, that's the new standard, guys. That's what I mean about new lifeblood. It's like someone comes in with a new perspective. They don't know what's been done before. And they're like, oh, I have this new, this is what they bring to the table. And then you're like, oh, that's better. Let's do that.
Yep.
And things just kind of level up from there.
Oh, yeah. Great points. And I like how that they kind of meld together, you might say, with the first question that we talked about with that new blood. And I love that you have a consistent pattern and schedule for training, and that you really have a whole wide spectrum of topics that you're covering, because that is something else that I've noticed in a lot of teams that I've worked with. They don't often expand the horizons, shall we say. They stay really focused on what their tasks are, and they think it always has to be job or task related. But you can learn about anything, and that can really promote the creativity. So I love that you're doing that, and I love that you spread it around and let other people share as
It's a
well.
requirement. It just because that levels up their skill set in itself. Delivering the team is part of the skill set level up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add one more thing to that is I've seen a huge consistency with anyone who has philosophy background. So that's something that my project manager, who she's on a 2-year track, she'll probably end up being my COO is my guess. That she knows that. And like literally if I get hit by a bus, she runs my company. She's 25. But she's been with me for 2.5 years, and she has a philosophy background. I brought somebody else on earlier this year who also has a philosophy background, and I was like, how can I find another one of the other one? And I did. I mean, it's like and now they're such a perfect tag team. And then I have some people in my personal life that have also seen that same parallel with just that philosophy background, adding such a deep layer of critical thinking skills. And so like now I have the two of them where I'm encouraging them to anytime they want, they always jump the queue of having like just anything to kind of shift the mindset. It's just the same mindset of measure twice, cut once. Like if we can figure out how to sharpen our perspective on things, then everything else productivity wise increases. So we always have like an infiltration of that in our trainings.
That's interesting. Fascinating that you've got some philosophy influence there that's helping to guide the ship a little bit. Great information. Thank you for sharing it. Okay, question number 3. Share one tip for effective delegation.
Yeah. So for this, I'm going to have to lean on our operating system that I created called the 5-engine operating system. So we the execution flow as a part of that operating system. I just call it the 5-phase build cycle because you always have 5 phases of execution. You have ideation, architect, execution, test, optimize. And you have a baton handoff is what we call it between each one. So in ideation, you build a concept brief. So that's where it comes from nothing into a format that the team can understand. So from leadership, executive, whatever it is. And then that gets passed on to whoever's doing the architecting, and they digest that and put it into a build plan. And then that build plan is what gets passed to the execution team. That execution team is very clear on everything that they need. And then when they're done, then there's a QA in the testing phase. If QA says all good, then we're all good. And if not, if anything pops in QA, then we go into an optimization phase, which is basically just like a mini architecture phase.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, breaking that up like you do is a great way to make sure that we're spreading the wealth, shall we say, and that everybody is in a role that they're really good at. And that's how you can delegate, is just keep it very, very clear. I love that. Love that you have a system in place to do that. Question number 4, how do leaders effectively communicate values and vision and so forth to team members?
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to just first off, having your mission, vision, values. So that's something that's amazing to me, how many businesses I see that don't actually have those. And even when they do, sometimes they're just like, oh, I'm supposed to put these words together. And then they're just like nice things on a wall or a website. And so in our operational arm, that's the first thing that we do with companies is, whether that's the biggest pain points that they have, like if doesn't matter what else we're helping them with, if they don't have those, we always make sure that we implement those, because that's your North Star for everything. It's not just like, oh, some nice sentiments. It's how you make decisions as a company. Should I hire this team member? Should I change our service here? What's our customer service look like? What should our policy be for this? Should I fire this client? All of those things are all wrap up into your mission, vision, values. So if you don't have those in writing, you're running blind as a company.
Yeah, great points. Yep.
And they implicate everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So back to the 5 engines. So we make sure we actually have a playbook for each engine and also each program that we have for our company. So every offer that we have and each engine has a playbook, and we say, how do our core values show up in this area? So, we have our technical, what they are, but then it's in application. How do they show up? How do we emphasize this? How do we make sure that anybody who's experiencing this side of our business actually experiences these core values?
That is wonderful to hear that, because that is really, in my view, that's one of the key elements. Writing it down is important. You have to at least start there. You're absolutely right. But I love that in your documentation, you are actually saying, how does this show up? What does this actually look like in this phase of the delivery to the client or whatever the situation may be? But you're helping your staff and your team to understand this core value shows up this way in this situation. And that to me is one of the biggest missing links in a lot of companies. They're very good at creating the mission, values, purpose, and so forth, but they don't communicate it effectively because they don't help the employees see how it shows up. And that's like the most important part. So I love that you're doing that. That's awesome. All right, well, let's wrap it up. Final question. Tell us a little bit about your first job.
So my first job wasn't very exciting. I worked at Panera, except that I grew up in St. Louis, so it was actually called St. Louis Bread Company.
Oh, okay.
Nobody knows that if you're not from St. Louis, but we always called it Bread Co. And then I left St. Louis, and I'm like, what's Bread Co? And I was like, oh, it's Panera. Okay, good to know. So that, when I was 16, that was my job there, minus babysitting and silly things like that. But the first job that when I actually realized that I had a natural acumen and a passion for business was I worked at a holistic health center. Laser therapy was the primary specialty. And that was my original background, was holistic health. And through that experience, I ran basically everything but the accounting for that company. Small company, team of 7, nothing crazy. But I realized that it was fun for me. And there was things that just made sense to me that no one else seemed to understand, in my early mid-20s. And then I looked around and saw that most holistic health providers are not the best at business. So I just found myself answering all the same things to so many different people, and then shifted gears because business had a much higher ceiling than holistic health. I realized I could have a lot more impact there than in the former. So shifted gears about 10 years ago.
Oh, that's awesome. Good for you. Well, I'm glad that you found and discovered almost by accident, it sounds like, but you discovered where you fit in. And that's, hey, I think about business and they don't. They think about whatever the profession is that they may be involved in. That's what they're focused on. And you're helping them to run the business efficiently and effectively, which explains why you do what you do now. So that's awesome. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much again for taking time to be on the podcast today. How can people find you?
Yeah, businessdonebetter.co. So it's .co. Businessdonebetter.co. You can go to our direct website, or if you do a /Rebecca, REBECCA, then that's how you can find me directly.
Fantastic. Thanks again. And thanks to all of you who are following us on the podcast each week. We look forward to having you join us again. And we wish everybody a great day. Thanks very much. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.